Welcome to Hamilton County Television and the debut of Hook Connections. We are here to educate the consumer and other businesses on the best business practices and how to find those honest businesses. Today our guest on the show is Scott Verbarg with Verbarg Risk Management. He is a local insurance agent, and we're going to be discussing auto, home, boat, motorcycle, all types of personal lines of insurance coverage today, because a lot of times insurance agents aren't educated, and that's why they make the wrong decisions in buying their insurance. So Scott, just tell us all a little bit about what you have done in the insurance industry and what made you open your own insurance agency.
Okay, well, thank you, Barb. I started in the insurance industry in 1991. I started out as a field claim employee, and I spent the next 19 years progressing through various positions in the claim department with a large insurance company, and worked briefly as a unit claim manager. But it's with that claim experience that I really came to know the various insurance coverages, and I learned a lot about what can happen to people through various risks that they face in their everyday lives. And the best thing that I like about working in the insurance industry is helping people. And it's especially rewarding when you're helping people in times of need. And 4 years ago, I decided that with the particular opportunity with Allstate, I wanted to terminate my employee status and become an agent for Allstate. And since then, things have gone very well. And I really like the fact that I can work with customers face-to-face on a daily basis.
Right. And, you seem everywhere networking. I'm a professional networker, actually, for all of my clients. And the thing that really sets his office apart from a lot of other insurance agencies is their customer service standards. I can text any of them. I can call them. I can email them. And I never have to do it twice. I actually was in line behind him at the filling station the other day and texted him telling him to hurry up. So, it's just the importance of being able to get a hold of your insurance agent. That's a very, very, very important thing that you need to consider. And, what sets you apart from the internet insurance companies? Why should somebody not go with an internet-based insurance company?
Well, first and foremost, we are a locally based company, and I have 4 licensed insurance representatives in my office. And I think that is what really sets us apart from the competition, because we get to know our customers on a first-name basis. A lot of our customers like to come in, even if they don't have an insurance concern or question. They'll stop in just to visit or talk about what's going on. So it's when you really know your customers, you know their personal situation, and you understand what their lives are like, we're in a better position to recommend the best insurance coverage for them.
Absolutely. And, I don't have anything against any of the online insurance companies, but when you have a claim, I know my children have experienced this by being insured with one online, that you don't have any insurance agent representation. You don't have anybody to help guide you with an insurance claim. And if you're stuck out on a road and you have an auto accident, you don't know where to go if you've never had one before.
Well, that's very true. And what a lot of people don't appreciate is that a lot of times with a 1-800 number, when you call in, you never talk to the same person twice.
Absolutely.
So your claim might be handled by a team of individuals, but you don't have one person dedicated to see your claim through from start to finish.
What do you feel is the most important coverage on a homeowner standpoint, or the most important item that a person should be considered or should worry about? Is it a deductible? Is it making sure that their house is insured properly? What are your thoughts, and explain what some of those differences are?
Well, I think first and foremost, you need to make sure that the dwelling coverage amount is adequate to ensure that if the house is destroyed, let's say by fire or tornado, for example, that there's adequate funds there to rebuild the house as it was.
Correct.
And second of all, I think a lot of homeowners do not take into account the importance of having liability coverage. Now, liability coverage is important. It applies to all members of the family. And it not only provides you against legal liability for incidents that occur on the property, but it also covers you for activities away from the property.
Right, right.
I'd like to give a couple of real-world claim examples
Sure.
Pertaining to homeowners insurance liability coverage. One, in the recent past, we had a customer who took their dog for a walk in the park, and during that walk, they let their dog off the leash. And in doing so, the dog took off and ran at an elderly lady who was walking in the park. The dog didn't bite her, but the dog, in its, exuberance, jumped up on the lady. She was backing up at the time. She tripped over a curb, ended up falling, and there was a trip to the ER and several follow-up visits with the doctor. That is a classic example of something that can occur to everyday people, and what came out of it was a claim of negligence.
Well, and I know another liability claim that a lot of people don't think about, and that is, not every insurance company covers this, but something you have to really be concerned about is dog bite liability.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's
go into
true.
a little more detail on that one.
Some insurance companies will not provide coverage if you have what they consider to be a vicious dog, and there's a lot of published resources that list on average 10 vicious breeds that are considered to have a high propensity for biting.
Right.
Now, that's not necessarily the case with Allstate. We generally go by the saying, the first bite's free. Now, if you have a dog that is inclined to bite, the insurance company may ask you to get rid of the dog, but it doesn't prevent us from being able to put a coverage in place for that customer. Now, the important thing to remember is that all dogs potentially can bite, and that there's a high likelihood you're going to be held legally liable for the actions of your dog.
Absolutely, absolutely. And something else in the liability section, I think about this every year right before the holidays. A lot of people do not carry enough liability in general on their homeowners because they think that the minimum $100,000 is enough. And I can think of an instance right now where you have holiday gatherings, you may have food and alcohol provided, and you're not in the business of selling it or manufacturing, but it's host liquor liability. And tell us how some of the homeowners policies work with that.
Well, in this day and age, anybody can sue anybody, right? So if somebody is a guest at your house and they leave your house after having a few drinks at your house after dinner, and they're involved in an accident, it's likely that the plaintiff that was injured in that accident is going to name everybody that could even be remotely argued to be liable.
Correct.
So while you may not have any legal liability, you can still be sued. And an Allstate homeowners policy provides or covers the cost of defending you, whether the suit has any merit or not.
Well, I hate to interrupt you, Scott, but let's take a break right now, and we'll come back and finish the discussion.
Absolutely. Thank you.
When Margaret and I decided to sell the old estate here, we had only one choice in signage: Logan Street signs and banners. Conveniently not located on Logan Street anymore, but rather located on 10th Street on the south side of Noblesville. Well, we sold the old beauty, and we were able to buy this wonderful estate. And we had so much money left over, I was able to buy this beautiful 1968 Eldorado Cadillac for Margaret. Only 472,000 miles. Margaret loves it because it's got those big seats and that heavy-duty suspension to support her svelte frame. Next time you're looking for signs or banners, call old Jim at Logan Street Signs and Banners, 773-7200. Conveniently not located.
Everyone knows it's easy to find first-run movies in the big theaters. But where can you go to watch your favorite classic movies on the big screen for the perfect night out? Why rent a flick when you can rent the entire theater? Call today to reserve our 32-seat theater for your next event, or just stop by to see what's showing this weekend. The 14 by 7 foot screen and the high quality digital surround sound system offers all the amenities you would expect from the big theaters, with a laid-back atmosphere and comfortable seating of your own home. Wofford Theater at 1744 South 10th Street in Noblesville gives you the classic movies you want with a big theater experience.
There you go.
Welcome back to Hook Connections. Today we have in the house myself, Barbara Hook with Hook Connect. Gina Scott Hawkins is the co-host of the show, and today our guest is Scott Verbarg with Verbarg Risk Management. And Scott, if you would, could you continue a little bit on some of the other liability coverages that should be important to people?
Well, we talked a little bit about homeowners liability, and I want to give another example of a claim situation. Again, stressing the point that liability extends to injuries that occur off the insured premises, in other words, off of your own property. We had an insured who was playing Frisbee with his son at a Notre Dame football game, and according to witnesses, the son threw the Frisbee in a reckless manner. And make a long story short, he hit a woman in the face who was wearing eyeglasses. And it wasn't her lens that broke, but the frames on her glasses broke. And that caused a large laceration on the side of her face. And in the end, that claim ended up settling for several $1,000s because of the disfigurement associated with the scar. And that's an example of what people don't realize, that, again, through everyday activities, you might find yourself legally liable.
Well, and I can actually relate to that, because when my son was very young, and he was in child care. He was like 3 years old, and he got very angry with someone who wouldn't share toys or something. I'm not sure what the situation was. And he picked up a can of corn and threw it at one of the other children, and he cracked his head open. I mean, just skin laceration. But that is very important, that you have to remember that you have those higher limits of liability. I mean, in my 38 years of being on the insurance industry, I would never sell a minimum limit liability policy.
Sure. And if for people that have swimming pools and trampolines, your exposure is a little bit higher than your average homeowner too. Those are things that you want to take into account. And for a lot of households, it's important to consider a personal umbrella policy, which provides you an additional layer of liability coverage that extends not only through things that occur on your property or away from your property, but also through the use of automobiles, boats, motorcycles. In other words, it provides you, in many cases, for all types of situations where legal liability might arise.
And many of those umbrella policies are basically many different companies, they take care of all the litigation fees, and all the attorney fees in a lawsuit, and for the company to represent you. So I really agree with you on that.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And a typical personal umbrella policy may have liability limits of $1 million, but when you incur defense costs, the cost to hire an attorney, the cost to conduct discovery, those costs are not taken away from your liability limit. They're in addition to. So for a typical trial, I think the insurance company averages $40,000 when a case goes to trial. So legal fees can add up quickly.
Well, and let me ask you a question. How does Allstate, how do you communicate with your underwriters if there has been some sort of a liability claim? Do you just get all the details and then take it directly to your underwriters and see if there can be an exception, or what is your ruling on any kind of liability claims to be acceptable?
Well, if it's somebody coming to Allstate as new business, the only stipulation that we have in place is that we have a supporting line of insurance. So if somebody has had a liability claim with another company, we can place coverage with Allstate provided they bring, for example, their auto insurance. So,
Very good. Very good. Okay.
I know, I'm speaking of auto insurance, I have a teenage daughter who I'm getting ready to try to insure on that end, but I know there's several ways that you can receive discounts on your auto insurance, and what are some of those ways?
Well, in your case, a lot of companies will offer a good student discount. It's named slightly different from company to company, but if your son or daughter maintains at least a B average, you can typically get a discount in the area of 10%.
Okay.
What I recommend to clients is when you have a son or daughter coming of age that will start driving is to put them in a car that does not require collision and comprehensive coverage.
Okay.
Some people like to refer to that as full coverage, but one of the most expensive components of an auto insurance policy for young drivers is collision coverage. And if you can put them in a car that's still reasonably safe and reliable, yet you don't need to carry full coverage, that's where you can minimize your cost.
Okay. And then are there other ways that any driver can receive discounts on their policy? I know, like maybe by being married or other ways that... Yeah.
Well, typically there's not a specific married discount, but married people do tend to receive lower rates than somebody that's single, all other things being equal.
Okay.
Now at Allstate, we have a multi-policy discount.
Okay.
So if you have different lines of insurance, you get a discount. Multi-car discount.
Okay.
And the more cars you add to the policy, the higher that discount is.
Okay.
We have a safe driving discount, and we have a discount if you're willing to do the automatic payment plan.
Okay. Okay.
And what's that discount for that little box that you hook to your car?
Well, we call that DriveWise,
Okay.
and that discount starts out at 10%, but based on your results after 6 months, that discount will be readjusted, and it can land anywhere from 0 to 30%.
And I was proud to say I was like an A, if I remember right. And that just has to do with your driving habits. You know, it can just monitor and track how fast you go, how fast you stop, how fast you take off, what hours of the day and night you drive. So that can be quite a savings on your auto insurance.
It can, and the important thing is to stress about that is that mileage gets the greatest weight when calculating your discount. So in the old days, insurance companies used to ask people, how many miles would you average per day or per month, per year? And a lot of people didn't know, or a lot of people would make up that number. So with technology now, insurance companies can get a better idea how you use the car and how much you drive, and it allows them to tailor a rate. People that drive less or have short commutes save more than people that have long commutes.
Correct.
So-
Correct.
Scott, can you tell us where our office is located and how people can get in touch with you?
Absolutely. My office is located on the southeast side of Indianapolis in Marion County, at the corner of Arlington Avenue and Thompson Road.
Okay.
The address is 6120 East Thompson Road. And my phone number is area code 317-802-1550.
Okay. Thank
And the
you so
important thing when you ask that question, Gina, is everything can be done electronically now.
Okay.
You know, if you don't want to drive down there, you can call him and get the quotes over the phone and get all the information. So anyone living anywhere in Indiana can actually call Scott or his office and purchase insurance.
That's correct. I have customers spread out throughout the state, and all of my customers have my cell phone number, and I encourage them to call me any time of the day or evening, and on weekends when and if something happens or if they need me.
Okay, that's great. I'm anxious to talk about homeowners insurance in our next segment. So we'll be right back.
Thank you.
Logan Street anymore. You know, when Margaret and I decided to sell the old estate here, we had only one choice in signage. Logan Street signs and banners. Conveniently not located on Logan Street anymore, but rather located on 10th Street on the south side of Noblesville. Well, we sold the old beauty, and we were able to buy this wonderful estate. And we had so much money left over, I was able to buy this beautiful 1968 Eldorado Cadillac for Margaret. Only 472,000 miles. Margaret loves it because it's got those big seats and that heavy-duty suspension to support her svelte frame. Next time you're looking for signs or banners, call old Jim at Logan Street Signs and Banners, 773-7200. Conveniently not located on Logan Street anymore.
Everyone knows it's easy to find first-run movies in the big theaters. But where can you go to watch your favorite classic movies on the big screen for the perfect night out? Why rent a flick when you can rent the entire theater? Call today to reserve our 32-seat theater for your next event, or just stop by to see what's showing this weekend. The 14 by 7 foot screen and the high quality digital surround sound system offers all the amenities you would expect from the big theaters, with a laid back atmosphere and comfortable seating of your own home. Wofford Theater at 1744 South 10th Street in Noblesville gives you the classic movies you want with a big theater experience.
Welcome back to Hook Connections. We enjoy having you visit us today. We're learning lots of information about personal lines of insurance and how important it is to get the right coverages, have the right insurance agent, and what questions you should be asking. Hook Connect is actually a company that goes out and researches and qualifies businesses for honesty and integrity, and we promote them. Our guest host today, Gina Scott Hawkins, is the owner of Star Media, and she's a social media guru. So if anybody ever needs any connections for and how to do social media, you need to contact Gina. And then today our guest is Scott Verbarg with Verbarg Risk Management, and I think we're going to chat a little bit about homeowners insurance and what some of the main concerns are now of what you see going on in the insurance industry with all of the insurance companies and not really explaining to people and how to deal with it and what it means.
Okay, sure. One of the things that I see frequently is that people with basements do not have water and sewer backup coverage on their existing policies. And the reason insurance companies break that coverage out is, number one, not all people have basements. Therefore, there may not necessarily be a need in every case. So rather than include a carte blanche in a policy, it makes more sense to add that as an endorsement. The problem is people tend to be short-sighted when they're looking at the cost of insurance. And there's always that mindset, it's not going to happen to me. But
Right.
Water in the basement is a fairly common occurrence.
And it doesn't even have to be somebody with a basement, because you can live in a home and the ground gets too saturated and the water and sewer backs up into your home, and that is water and sewer backup too. You know, and some of the insurance companies I remember from being in the insurance industry will cover structure damage in a water and sewer claim, backup claim, but they will not cover contents. And
Yes.
that gets real frightening, you know, when you think you have it, but it's never been explained to you. And how many people do you know take out their policy and read it besides me?
Not very many people, but the Allstate Water and Sewer Backup endorsement does cover contents, and then of course the dry out process and the structure damage, if any.
Well, and you know, before my career ended in insurance, and I began Hook Connect, and we can go into that in a whole different segment or a whole different show. I noticed there were lots of things happening because of all the hail claims. You know, we had, 4/16/06, which was on a Good Friday. We had like 3-inch hail, and it just absolutely plummeted the roofs in central Indiana. How are the insurance companies changing now on with their exposure in homeowners claims when it comes to hailstorms or windstorms versus back then before all of these hail claims started hitting central Indiana?
Well, my observation has been that the trend will be, and currently has started, with insurance companies paying full replacement costs for a roof during the first years of its life. Your typical roof will last 20 years, maybe 25 years, and what I expect to see is all insurance companies will pay full replacement while that roof is, let's say, between the ages of 1 and 15 years, for example. And then after that, as the roof approaches the end of its useful life, an insurance company will only pay a percentage of the roof replacement.
Right.
And the homeowners will, unfortunately, be responsible for the difference.
Well, and I know when I was still writing auto and home insurance, many of the, and I won't name any specific insurance companies, but many of the insurance companies out there were placing percentage deductibles on the entire policy. So it didn't have to be a hailstorm claim, but it was going to be a percentage. And could you explain to people what that percentage means?
Right. Percentage deductibles are becoming more common now, and some companies have required all new business to be written with a percentage deductible. Let's say, for example, 1%. Now, I've run into people who were under the impression that that's 1% of the claim cost. So, for example, if you have a $10,000 loss, your out-of-pocket cost for the deductible is going to be $100. And that's certainly not the case. When you have a percentage deductible, it is 1% of the dwelling coverage amount. So if you take an average home, let's say is insured for $250,000, your out-of-pocket deductible will be $2,500. So
Right.
for some households, that can be quite a surprise, and it can be very difficult to manage for some.
Yeah, and if I remember right, you know, a lot of insurance agents, and you'll never find this with Scott because his name gets put in front of me every single month with some type of news about the agency or something that they do. But there are many insurance agents out there that don't even call you when it's time for renewal. You know, they don't even offer to do an insurance review with you. So I think that's very important when you're choosing an insurance agent, that you choose one and you interview them to see if you really want them as an insurance agent. Because if they're not going to work right for you, then it's probably not going to be a good fit.
I definitely think you are very knowledgeable about your field, and I wish that I had had an insurance agent who had went through these details with me, because I had a similar situation where I just had to move from a home because of continual flooding in my basement, and never even was explained that I could get coverage for that in my policy. Definitely good to know all those things and have somebody that can explain those in detail to your clients. So.
Right, and I'm always happy to take the time to do that, and I think that's really what separates my agency. My staff follows my lead in that regard, and that's what separates us from a lot of the competition, in that we're willing to spend the time it takes to help the customer understand what they have, where their exposures are, and hopefully options to protect them from that.
That's wonderful.
And Scott's office does have a specialist in their office that focuses on commercial business too. So, Scott, could you give us some ideas of the niche focus markets that Amy Blade is working on?
Yeah. Well, we found that with commercial insurance, a lot of specialized knowledge is required, and no two businesses are alike. So my approach was to designate Amy, she already has a lot of commercial insurance experience, to specialize in that and serve really as our subject matter expert when it comes to business insurance. And Allstate has a very good product for small retail shops, barber and beauty salons. We have a package policy for locksmiths, believe it or not. And
seems like that would be high exposure, but okay.
And people that operate their own mobile type businesses, like Little Debbie snack trucks or Snap-on tools, Matco tools, those type of businesses fit real well. But if it's something that Allstate can't underwrite, or that Allstate has no experience with, we have other carriers that we can potentially place that business with.
Well, that's very good. And can you real quickly just give us your email information before we sign off for this segment, and so people know how to send you an email?
Absolutely. My email address is Scott, S-C-O-T-T, .Verbarg, last name is spelled V as in Victor, E-R-B-A-R-G, Scott.Verbarg at allstate.com.
Very good. And we'll be right. And we would also like to thank Logan Street Signs and Banners, because they are our sponsor on this show, and it wouldn't be possible for us to be here if it wasn't for them.
Thank you.
You're going to say goodbye and see you next week?
Oh, is that it? Okay.
You want to say that?
Yeah, okay. All right.
You're still on the air.
Okay. We will be back next Wednesday, and our special guest will be, you definitely don't want to miss this one if you have an iPhone or an iPad, because it's going to be all about iPhone and iPad safety, and he was not long ago interviewed by Fox 59 for this very same subject. So we will have Mark Pugh on board next week to discuss that safety. And we will see you next week.